Thanks for joining, Shahir and Sheetal. I really appreciate it. And I think we're just waiting for Abhijit and Mahbub to join. So let's just give them about 30 seconds to join. Okay, and there is Abhijit.
Hey, Ashwin.
Hey, Abhijit. How are you? Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. We'll just give about 30 seconds for Mahbub to join and then we can get started. Does it sound okay? Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah.
We're not able to see Abhijit as such. Are you guys seeing him? Abhijit?
Yeah, I'm trying to switch on the video.
Oh, okay, cool.
Let me try to join again.
Seeing a blank panel. Awesome. While we wait for Abhijit and Mahbub to join, why don't we begin with a round of introduction? Shahir, do you want to start off?
Sure. So hello, everyone. I'm Shahir. I basically head up e-commerce marketing for Azadea Group. For the people that don't know, Azadea Group has a host of brands like Zara, Massimo Dutti, Zara Home, Pull&Bear, Bershka, and they've recently launched an e-commerce portal, a marketplace called Azadea.com. They also have other brands like Virgin Megastore, Paul, which is an F&B. I've been here for over 6 months now. Prior to that, I've worked as a head of digital for Apparel Group, which is again a retail organization. And they have their star website called Sixth Street. So I was mostly managing all digital marketing for them. And before that, I used to work as a senior manager, digital and analytics for Landmark Group, looking after 3 of their brands, Lifestyle, Splash, Centerpoint. Yeah, so happy to be here. I've had a host of experience with MoEngage in all 3 organizations. So yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Shahir. Thanks for joining us. And I think Abhijit just had a smile when Shahir mentioned Landmark Group. So Abhijit, do you want to go next?
Actually, we never crossed paths when he was here. Yeah, but yeah, I was also in Dubai office.
Connect with him.
We were focusing more on merchandising at that point in time. But, yeah.
Got it. But yeah, I mean, let's do a round of introductions. So, and there's Mahbub. Hey, Mahbub.
Yeah, Ashwin. I'll just turn on my. Okay, on.
Oh, we're all with you. So we're just doing a round of introductions. Yeah, go ahead, Abhijit.
So in my current role, I work for India business, basically taking care of their customer analytics, e-commerce analytics, inventory management, and markdown. And I also support the product development, which is for India or Gulf, as well as helping with the merchandising side. Now, as part of my current role, I have some responsibilities related to the technical architecture for India in terms of marketing automation, data platform, or supply chain in terms of omnichannel. So that is what I'm doing right now. In the past, I was in Dubai office till March 2018 of Landmark, and then basically setting up the data labs team from one function to another, and then one brand to another. And today we are 120 plus associates with data engineering, data sciences, and data analysis skills. And before that, I was working with Target Corporation for 7.5 years, joining in the Bangalore office, going to US, 3 years there in merchandising, did mostly in research, had some patents there, came back, started leading teams in supply chain. So that's what I've been doing throughout my career.
Awesome. Thanks, Abhijit. Welcome. And did you say 100 plus people just on the data lab side of things for Landmark?
Yeah. 120x right now.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so it is not about just customer analytics, right? So it is about all the type of analytics. And the recent growth, mostly it is actually happening in the e-commerce analytics, especially after COVID. Many new problems are coming up related to supply chain fulfillment. How do we reduce the turnaround times? How do we ensure the resource planning is accurate? And that as a driver to improve the conversion.
Got it. Awesome. Thanks, Abhijit. Sheetal.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so I'm Sheetal. I head up the Omni business in V-Mart. So for people who don't know V-Mart, V-Mart is one of the largest retailer in North with over 270 stores. And We are a value retail company wherein our price points are more to cater to the rural India, and we have also spread ourselves across tier 2, tier 3. We have now started our Omni journey, and within this Omni and e-commerce journey, we are actually looking at a lot of new things which we had never experienced as a hardcore retail company. So it's throwing us lots and lots of opportunities, but I think rural India, which probably a few years back, nobody was even interested in getting them online. The landscape has completely changed. And we've always been a pioneer in our segment. And we actually continue to do the same even in online. So yeah, that's about me. I have worked in, prior to VMart, I was actually in Myntra Jabong. I was heading up the strategy for women business in Myntra. And prior to that, I was in Smile Group. So it's a fair 7-8 years in online, but the customer segment is very, very different from what it was in my previous companies and in this company.
Interesting, Sheetal. I'm going to come back to that. It'll be interesting to see how customer behavior, consumer behavior has changed, and some of the, obviously, someone like an Azadi or a Landmark goes after a certain set of customers, and then VMart is obviously going after a different set of customers. So it'll be interesting to see how consumer behavior has changed over the last 12 months. So we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Mahbub.
Yeah, Ashwin. Yeah.
So we're just doing a round of introductions.
Yeah. Hey, hi everyone. This is Mahbub Reza. I happened to join RedTech very recently. I joined, in fact, in November, probably on 29th of November. So it's been only 4 months now. And I am part of a larger customer engagement team, and I'm heading the CRM here along with the analytics. And the goal of our team or goal of our department is how do we engage customer in various shape and forms in order to drive not just the top line, but also the long-term value of the customer. So that's the greater agenda, and the metrics we measure is how do we delight, that is the NPS scores and all those things. So that's the broad introduction. And Red Tag is a single brand in fashion retail, and it has been there since 2006, and we are a leading player. I mean, we compete with Max, R&B, some of them, and our major business is in KSA with other countries like UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman. So we have presence in all the GCC country, but our major business is in KSA, and we have roughly 185 stores across the GCC, and we have some franchisee partners outside the GCC area. Coming about myself, I started my career with Fidelity Investments, completely unaware about the retail before November. So I started in 2011. I worked there for 2.5 years. Then I moved to Excella Jamshedpur for my MBA. I did my MBA in Marketing and Finance. Then I started with PwC. Since 2016, July, I was working with PwC in financial services advisory practice. So I was working primarily with banks, NBFCs, insurance in India, in Middle East region. And then I happened to get an opportunity with Red Tag, and now I'm here as a CRM manager. So that's pretty good.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Mahbub. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, all right, excellent. Let's jump in. Now, before we start with the questions, just an announcement for the audience. Please do feel free to drop in your questions, either do it on the chat window or do it on the Q&A box. We'll pick up the relevant questions as we go along with the conversation. We do want this to be more interactive, and the whole purpose of this community initiative is to provide more knowledge and share more insights from people who have actually done this before. So happy to answer any questions that the audience comes along. So please do type in those. All right, excellent. So now let's jump into sort of like the question of the season, right? So how has consumer behavior changed? And that's something that's everybody on everybody's mind over the last 12 months. Everybody seems to be asking that question. There's a lot that's written about it, but I want to understand a little bit more and we have, like I said, a fairly diverse set of sort of panelists and diverse set of brands, right? I mean, we have Sheetal from sort of the V-Marts of the world, and then there is the other side, which is more towards the which caters to a different sort of a consumer segment. So if I were to come to you, Sheetal, and talk about, how has consumer behavior changed? I mean, what have you seen over the last 12 months or so? Any anecdotal examples and any data-backed examples as well? I mean, anything that you have seen at all would be super helpful.
So the COVID has actually forced everybody to change the way we think, the way we serve the customer. It's not just the retail companies who were forced to change, but it was actually also the consumer. You were forced to adapt to newer ways of shopping. So to give us, if I take back V-Mart's journey and V-Mart's customers themselves, we actually cater to almost 3 crore customers in a year. And most of them are extremely loyal. Our repeats are as high as 60-70%. But when our stores actually went into a complete lockdown, we realized that our customers were actually still looking for shopping. Now, that's the time when we thought, why not interact our customers in a way? One is through the normal SMS and stuff like that. But the other was, why not educate them by just calling? So our store guys started calling our customers, and we told them to come and hop to our online as a platform. And we were absolutely surprised when the number of customers whom we actually connected, and actually we had to actually even teach them how to shop online, because we are actually dealing with the tier 3s and tier 4 where people were not very used to shopping online. We actually even trained them. We saw conversion on our online platform as high as 10%. Now, wow. These are the customers who had actually never shopped online. They had not shopped online even from V-Mart platform. In spite of the store guys always telling them that we do have a online portal, why don't you go there and shop? In spite of that, but we saw the biggest change and the biggest jump in the month of June, July, where it was already 1.5 months, 2 months, where the lockdown was real, stores were all closed down. Our store guys started calling them that, why don't you shop? And we saw a 10% conversion. Now that 10% conversion over a period of 12 months, as the stores have gone down, has actually only gone up. So now, even though the stores is operational, customers still want to go back online and see what's available. And sometimes you also talk to the store guy that I saw something in online, I can't see it in your store and stuff like that. So it is not just the company which had to change massively, it was also the customers, and they have adopted to the newer ways of working. In fact, if I have to add, in our improvement on our tech, the massive improvement invariably comes from our customers only. They actually call the customer center and they actually tell us that these are the facilities, you don't have it on your app, but we have it very easily on the other app. So many of developments are also coming from the customers. So they are not just restricted to V-Mart. They are not restricted to just V-Mart stores. They are now shopping online. And apart from that, per se, which is our customer, we also see a lot of other giant retailers like an Amazon and Flipkart. They're completely trying to get us on board. They want to use our network of some 280 stores. And at the same time, they also feel this is a heart from where the e-commerce next journey or the next growth is going to come. So I think last 12 months have been an eye-opener for everybody, whether it's company or it's customers. Online is definitely there, is there to stay. Even if the COVID goes back completely, I think it's just there to stay. And now it's like no looking back. And there are now a lot of things that every company is doing, including us, like a lot of stuff changing. And I mean, even for the operation bit, to run an online business, even the operations have to change so dramatically because we are finally running an omni business. So in omni business, there are so many things which are very unique to an e-commerce company, which everybody has to now bring into practice, whether it's inventory accuracy, whether it is warehouse, whether it is building the logistic, because again, we are at places where sometimes logistic doesn't even reach. So how do you actually create those routes, and how do you actually make that logistic area also a little more, you optimize it for routes or for costs, for RTOs. So there's so many things that has suddenly come up and has become priority for a lot of people in this industry, and especially in retail as a company.
Awesome. And you know, and that seems like a phenomenal transformation over the last 12 months. And you know, I have a lot of follow-up questions, but you know, I'm going to sort of just ask one follow-up question. That you spoke a lot about educating customers to start using the online channel. So which means that for a lot of your customers, this was the first time they were actually being exposed to e-commerce. So it was almost like a new category for them.
Yeah.
So how did that sort of category creation, category education happen? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because what I see is a lot of, you know, a lot of sort of traditional retailers or traditional enterprises are also figuring it out, you know, on how to sort of disrupt this and all of that. But at the same time, there is a huge market out there in terms of a lot of, you know, companies trying to create categories on their own, whether it's new age or even traditional enterprises. So I'm just trying to understand, how did you go about educating your customers?
Okay, so this was not a very easy journey, neither it was something which everybody can do. Now, we had a complete lockdown of stores in April onwards. April, we had little stores, but by May, everything was completely locked down. Now, in every store, we have anywhere between 30 to 50 people, depending upon the size of the store. Now, those 30 to 50 people, though the stores were shut down, every store also has roughly around 20 to 30,000 customers who are loyal to that store. They actually started calling them. So a very primitive way of doing it, but we started calling. We used to make calls, roughly 20,000 calls a day. And out of those 20,000 calls, we used to tell them how to shop or how to browse the category, how to make the prepaid. We had no cash on delivery at that time. So we had to take them to the journey that you have to add your 16-digit number. Sometimes they used to also tell us that, can you do it for us? And then we can't do it because it's an OTP link and you can't take credit card details. So we had to actually tell them. So that journey was through calls where we were speaking to the customers for almost 15 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes showing them the range in the store through a WhatsApp call. So it was honestly very primitive, but I would say that entire training helped not only customers, but also our own executives in the store, because even our executives are not very well versed. So when we actually started, we had a huge cancellation of 30% and 40% because they used to not understand only how to pick up or how to pack the stuff, how to hand it over to logistics. This entire 2-3 months when everything was shut, the training was actually for both, for the stores guy and for the customer. So yeah, a little primitive way of doing it, and a very traditional way of doing. Whoever is from e-commerce, they will just not believe that we actually did this. But honestly, this was the way we did by just calling the customers. But it has paid us well.
This is incredible, right? Because when you talk about educating users, everybody thinks about maximizing the app onboarding experience and the UX of the app and sending push notifications and that. You know, very few people actually think about just calling the customer and teaching them, you know, sort of like, you know, like 10 minutes, teach them how to use the app and they're all set, right? So this is super incredible. And I think we should actually dig deeper into this, but you know, I mean, in the interest of time, I'm going to get to the others as well. Shahir, I think you wanted to make a point. Go ahead.
I just wanted to, sorry, it's really interesting, right? I wanted to ask, so these calls were the ones that were leading to a 10% conversion rate? So you're potentially getting 2,000 orders a day. Wow.
2,000 orders only from the customers who are of VMart store customers, whom we never wanted to bring in online. So that's what happened. We just reached that 2,000 orders when everything was at a shutdown zero.
Wow, this is incredible.
But yeah, it was incredible. Even we didn't expect. And when our tech partner is ShopClues, and when the first time when we actually told, when I was speaking to Sanjay Sethi, and he was like shocked. He's like, this cannot work. He said, this is very stupid. Please start something more better. This is not the way it can work. So everybody was in for a surprise, but yeah, it did work actually.
Yeah, I think I had a similar experience at Red Tag because we were completely traditional. We had very, very minimal presence in the e-com side. And when the COVID hit, we were completely off the guard with nothing as a digital asset for our m-commerce. So what we started, the immediate thing was to enable our WhatsApp commerce without any branding, without any institutional framework. And that turned out to be an amazing experience for the customers because they wanted to have a conversational shopping experience. Even on the app, on different side, the conversation was missing because in Middle East, people like to shop. It's a hobby. And they also want to talk to people when they're shopping. And we, as a brand, as I'll talk in future questions, that we have a very strong fashion stylist program through which we, engage with our customer to help them style better, to help them shop. And fashion stylists were given the task to, communicate with the WhatsApp leads, and that's how they were making some amazing, transaction. I would say that there are a lot of transactions which crossed 1500 AED.
Wow. And these were basically traditional.
Yeah,
like actual phone.
and my
Wow.
and the average ATV is 150, 160.
Wow. That's incredible.
And now as a business, we are thinking of how do we, bring this entire WhatsApp as a commerce as a channel and institutionalize, make it more branded, give the experience that the customer expects.
Incredible. Thanks, Mahbub. So Abhijit, I'm going to come to you. You're the data guy. I mean, you're the guy with all the secrets, right? You have a lot of data. But from a hardcore sort of a data perspective, data analytics perspective, did you start seeing any changes in terms of the consumer behavior? Any sort of data point which made you think, oh, I thought this was going to turn this way, but data proves me otherwise? And I'm sure in your role, it probably happens all the time, but just more from a consumer behavior perspective, was there any sort of insights which told you that, oh, the consumer behavior is changing in this sort of a way?
So I think the first few months of COVID were mostly as per expectation. And the store conversion numbers means 100 people coming in, 90 people shopping, which is kind of unheard, right? So they have a very specific reason to come to the mall or to the standalone store and then doing it. But somewhere around October, things went completely different. And some regions were behaving way beyond the past pattern, or some regions were behaving way beyond our own expectations. Mm-hmm. So especially in Kerala and Karnataka and Odisha and some part of Andhra and Tamil Nadu, conversion dropped drastically. And it was still same in some other places, but many people started doing window shopping, and it went below the Corona benchmark also for some period, and then came back to the regular period. The standard 20 to 35% conversion, which depending upon format by format you will see. Second thing which we found it off guard was cancellations. So we thought that people need something, then only they would buy something. Suddenly the cancellation numbers were going way up. Means it is like, as Mahbub is saying it, it's a hobby. Whether it is a hobby for buying it or hobby for browsing it. So there's nothing else to do. So you browse and you start putting some. So we had to do some bit of guardrails also for managing the cancellations. But the cancellations were a norm from the retailer because we could not fulfill in the supply chain. That was April, May. That made different type of anticipations or consumer behavior, and it was behaving completely differently in the segments. So people in app versus mWeb, things were different. Third thing which I will kind of say, which is completely changed and which has dropped down, is the SMS open rate. So the way we see any link which we have and how it is. So it has changed. It has gone down remarkably down now, where the SMS as a medium is being questioned whether it is actually reaching out or not. This has happened in last 3 to 4 months, and especially in the last debacle which we see with DLT coming in with India TRAI, a lot of confusion has happened there. So there also things are going up and down all over the place. We are not able to estimate or predict how well we are able to communicate with the customers in SMS.
Correct. So SMS is more of a delivery challenge, is what you feel?
Both challenges, just delivery as well as attention. So the customer has received it, but the customer has 80 SMSs which are sitting in either in the promotional bucket or it is sitting unread and just sitting there. So only way for us to know is using the link which is there. True. And how much is the link unique clicks. So that is where we are able to try to see some bit of measurement.
That's interesting. That's very, very interesting. So Shahir, I'm going to come to you. How have you sort of seen any sort of examples that you have seen in terms of how the consumer behavior has changed? And I want to follow that up with a different question as well, in terms of how are you responding to those changes in the consumer behavior, right? From two perspectives, from your own job perspective, because obviously as marketers, we are all very closely linked to the way our consumers behave, and we have to change professionally to sort of address those, to address those changes. And at the same time, how has your organization or your brand sort of responding to some of these changes?
So I'll actually answer even a couple of questions in the back end with the same answer to this question. I think one of the biggest changes that I have seen in consumer behavior is that people, like Sheetal said, they've shifted to online. As an example, and this is for a couple of retail groups that I know, we used to do 4% of our sales from online. And what happened during COVID was obviously all the sales was coming from online. But prior to COVID, now what's happening is we're still sitting at a 2 to 3x growth. So a lot of the businesses in the Middle East right now are around 10 to 12% of their business coming from online, which is a big chunk. It's gone up by 2 to 3x, which is amazing. And what now companies are being pushed towards is to start looking into e-commerce properly. As a channel, it's a channel that is driving business for them, and they cannot ignore it. In terms of the question that you actually raised, the change that I have seen as a marketer is channel based. So I've seen customers moving away from long format videos, for instance, to short format videos. I've seen customers moving from Instagram, for instance, Facebook to Instagram. But I've seen them moving now from Instagram to TikTok, and now back to Instagram because of the Instagram Reels being launched. So what in terms of an approach that I take, and I think it works really well for me, is wake up as a digital marketer, wake up every day in the morning and tell yourself you're not good enough, you don't know anything, and the market has changed. And then go research, figure out where the market is at, and then make your analysis and assumptions, and then act accordingly. I think that is exactly what every organization right now is trying to apply, which is being agile. Telling yourself every day that we need to accept change, and we need to understand that what we might have done in the past is not the right thing to do. And that's really what's worked for a lot of organizations over here, and that's what will work for organizations in the future as well. I remember from Landmark days, we wanted to do this ropo exercise, which was we wanted to tell the management that from the online investments, this is the offline business that we are able to drive. And for the first month or so, I spoke to maybe 10 different people, and everyone told me that there's no way you can get that data. But eventually the business agreed, and the same people came back and said, this is amazing. So it's just about keep pushing them, keep telling them that, no, your traditional mindset and way of working is not going to work, and we have to evolve, we have to adopt. So that's really what companies need to work towards.
Got it. And you mentioned an interesting point over there in terms of how to push, how to sort of convince, manage upwards and sidewards to sort of drive people towards this change. And at the same time, you also need to align your team to sort of embrace this change as well.
Yeah.
And it's a bit tough when you're dealing with traditional organizations, right? Because they've been sending SMS and emails for the last 30 years. Or maybe 20 years, right? And now you're coming in and saying, you know what, this is not going to work, and that's not going to work, and this is, and they're like, we became $1 billion organization without you, So how would you sort of bring that change? Any thoughts on that?
It all comes down to testing. So how I've worked, I think the best way to do it is approaching it from a proof of concept method. So you go back to them and you tell them, yes, let's try with one market. Let's try with one brand. Let's try with one category. Just break it down and make it very small so that they understand that this is not going to impact the entire organization. And just keep trying. Don't give up. Eventually they will agree. And I've been, especially my biggest arguments have been with CFOs and the legal department, where they are not agreeing either to paying Google bills on time, because they're like, no, they need to understand our financial system. But it's just about having those debates consistently and telling them, reasoning, building a case. Sometimes you have to go back to them with incremental business analysis. Okay, if we do this exercise, this is the revenue impact that you can potentially see. And yeah, if you can get a proof of concept, that's another way of convincing the management.
Got it. And that's interesting. So I'm going to come back to you, Mahbub. So basically, I think in summary, Shahir, marketers need to how to sell internally, and then convince everyone. So we need to become more salespeople. But Mahbub, coming to you, how has your role or how have you sort of changed as a marketer? How have you sort of changed how have you changed professionally to reflect the changing consumer behavior and some of the ways in which red tag has changed as a brand to sort of reflect this?
All right, so I'll talk more from the red tech perspective, and then I'll come that how I, as a marketer, have started looking at things. See, red tech, as I told you, is a pure brick and mortar business. So the moment you talk about e-commerce, it is all Greek and Latin, and hence, bringing in the idea of customer engagement through digital means, all those are a sort of exercise in itself. But the good point is that one thing that our management understand that things are changing, customer needs are changing, and we have to evolve as a brand to engage with the customer. Now, our engagement cannot be purely through online. That's one thing which even I as a marketer have understood, and we as a larger team has also agreed upon that we cannot engage because we do not have a m-commerce or e-commerce presence. So all the efforts that we are doing, it has to somehow triangulate to our offline sales, which is a very, very interesting area because our online presence is not there, but offline we have to drive through the use of online. So of course there are traditional and the customer engagement as a journey, we see it in a very, very holistic manner. We don't see it in a manner that it is just a marketing tool for us that we engage with the customer to sell anything. Of course, selling will happen. We believe that if we service the customer right from the time that he is looking for a product till the product is used and consumed and his satisfaction score comes to us, we see it in a complete holistic manner. And that's how we design our customer engagement, and that has been ingrained in our organization. So we are trying to sort of build a customer centric organization, more focused even after the COVID, where we think everything is for the customer. And there can be three buckets that I can see what we are trying to do from a customer engagement perspective. One bucket is how do we engage customer before he comes to the store. So in that area, we are using the data analytics to identify the right set of customer, to do the right set of communication. All those social marketing is there. And then we have used micro-influencer and brand ambassador to reach out to at a ground level. So we are doing a lot of engagement from brand ambassador or influencer at a store level. And that gives a tremendous result. And all this is driven by the people who are part of the largest customer engagement group. So that is happening pre-customer visit. During the customer visit, we have tried to bring a complete change of attitude of the store people towards the selling. We, in a way, have communicated, taught them that customer, the moment he enters in the store, he needs to know that we value them, we understand them, we are there to support them and engage with them throughout their selection process and buying process. So we introduced a concept like fashion stylist. We introduced concept like greeting them the moment, and it is not, by the way, by design it happened. It is a cultural shift because people never, especially in Middle East, it was a very, very difficult task because people never used to go to a female customer and interact with them. So that cultural barrier had to be shattered to get this rolling. So all this happened. Now, once a customer leaves, we have promised that whenever you want to exchange something, you can come. Now, even that promise itself, the moment a customer comes, there is a resistance for a store manager. That cultural barrier was supposed to be broken so that the returns are accepted with a smile. That is also a form of engagement. And we as a brand have promised our customer, if you want to return your or get a refund, you can get a refund even after 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So that's the promise that we have. Only two things that you need is, one is invoice and second is the brand tag. That's the only two things. So, and operationally, on a paper, it will look very interesting, but on the ground, getting everything rolling, all those returns, it's very challenging, but it was all driven through a structured program. Coming back to myself, so when we think about anything, any new initiative, we always think that what is the new that we are doing for the customer, not for our business. How are we trying to solve the problem of our customer? Because in our customer engagement, one of the things that we have always felt that we always used to sell the products or services to our customer, not to address their problems. So at times, for example, I'll tell you, if I am designing a program for my customer, which is like calling a viable customer just to check. So we call our customers who have shopped, say, for 1000 AED plus, we call them after 7 days just to check that how is your product? Do you want to exchange anything? It is just to give a comfort to them that we are there to help you. It is not at all a sales pitch or sales call. So those are the things we try to think it purely from servicing the customer, delighting them rather than making upfront sale. So that's the shift that we are looking, especially after the COVID, because what we felt has helped us survive in this difficult time was the trust that we have been able to get over the years. And right now, the focus of our whole group is that how do we ensure that we continue to build trust with our customer, because customer clearly has shown that we will shop or we will engage with only those brands who are trustworthy. So the only thing that we can do is institutionalize our entire effort and help our frontliners to take those decisions upfront so that the promises that we do for our customer can be met and the trust is built. So that's how we see the whole customer engagement.
Awesome. Thanks, Mahbub. I think it's interesting to hear that a lot of it is a lot of cultural change, and I agree with you. It's so important to get everyone aligned on the fact that just win customer trust, business will happen. Eventually, it will happen.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to come to you, Sheetal, on this. I mean, you already spoke about some changes, right, in terms of actually educating the customers through phone calls in a very innovative way or very non-conformist way of actually onboarding and getting users and all of that. But apart from that, any other sort of way in which how you have responded to these to some of these changes, again, professionally or through the brand itself?
Yeah, so calling the customer was only till the time when the stores were not open, because otherwise then people are always busy with the store work. Sure. It was only for those 2-3 months. But after that, we realized that digital marketing, see, in retail, this traditional retail companies, digital marketing is not playing a huge role. They will not even have 2% of the entire marketing kitty. So to that extent, Facebook or Instagram or anything has been given any importance. It's always the loyal customer, word of mouth, ATL, BTL, that's all it works. Now, post this, the importance of digital marketing, not just to drive the online business, but to also drive and connect with the offline customers, has become a new way of working. Now, that is a very, very big change, which I see in VMart. And, as Shahir said, that, constantly we have to push, even in VMart, to do all these newer ways of acquiring the customer base through digital marketing and stuff like that. There's a lot of push which has actually gone from the online team to the offline team, because they are actually running the entire show and almost like 99% of the business. So in such cases, what we've done is, we have now started putting budgets for digital marketing, not only for online business, but also to drive the traffic in the stores. We are also connecting with the customers in a particular geography where we feel that the sales is not as per par in any of the stores. So even our bottom performing stores, now we've started using digital marketing. So that has been one very big change. It now almost is 12 to 15% of the total marketing spend that we have. We do now have agencies on board for social media, for performance marketing. We actually just hired you guys for engagement. So these are all the newer ways which was completely missing, which was not there. So this is one big change. But this is for acquiring customers and engaging them and those things. But apart from this, In Omni, what really plays a role is the inventory accuracy and how fast we are actually delivering or fulfilling the orders and handing it over to the logistic partner. Now, that part, when we actually got that scale, when we were not expecting in the COVID period, we realized that the stores were not able to fulfill the orders. They were not prepared to have in one store having 100, 200 orders. They weren't prepared to actually fulfill in spite of the fact there were no customers. Now that happened because the inventory accuracy in value retail is not always on par or is not very high, because at the end of the day we are selling 200, 300 rupees product and we've got tons and tons of inventory at one place. So that became a new challenge in itself, that how do we manage the inventory? How do we manage the inventory accuracy? And how do we manage, or how do we train our own guys to actually spot that product in the floor? Now, if there are tons of designs, if there are 30,000 designs at any point of time in any store, to find that one design when the planograms are not at its best, it's actually very, very difficult to find such product. So I think that became a new area of concern for the company. So that was the entire new area. Apart from that, the third big area, which we thought was not very important, which is true in, I think, every retail company, is a customer care. Now, customer care in retail companies, because the store is there, the guys will always call the stores or they will go to the stores because they're all in the proximity of the store. So calling up in the customer care and waiting for their problems, actually, that scenarios are very, very less. But that's not true when you suddenly come to online. So this area again becomes a very big area. The customers are going to be calling. They're not going to go back to the store. Stores might not know what has happened to the refund. When is the lot stuff going to reach the customer? So it becomes like a gray area. So that was another area we realized that we can't run the business the way an offline company runs. And that customer care, we actually then formed a customer care. We had a third party, a huge team, 5-7 people sitting only to pick up the calls, 5-7 people only to just solve the tickets and stuff like that. So these were few of the areas which, due to COVID, we realized and it got accelerated. Because before that, nobody was honestly interested in spending so much money in online business. Because for every level, there is a money which gets spent, which is not true in a store business. So yeah, those things I think we have made it like a point to improve. We now have a KRAs against every point. So there are some KRAs which are standard. Everybody knows 4 din mein maal pahunchna hai. Like, logistic 4-day stat has to be formed. But then people actually forget that what happens to the RTO. People actually forget when the return happens, what's the tat of the return. And when the return happens, how do we refund the money? Refund ka tat, what is a refund tat? So lot of things we learned with the scale coming in and newer ways as compared to what a traditional retail business will work.
So you pretty much learned the e-commerce side of the business from scratch.
Yeah. No, actually, it's not just me. I think the entire company is now learning. They've actually understood. Earlier, they used to feel that this women is completely lost it.
Like, Flipkart, let Flipkart and Amazon do it. We're happy with
Yeah, exactly. Because I came from Myntra, they used to find all these things very hard to understand. Okay, customer care, who spends so much on customer care? Now, because customer care even retail companies have, but then it's not the same. There is no CRM. There's not everything shown online. So yeah, it was a very, very big change, which thanks to COVID, it has accelerated. I think without COVID, this would have taken years for any retail company to understand.
True. Very valid point, Sheetal. So I think, Abhijit, I'm going to come back to you. And I think we're almost short of time. So I'm going to wrap up with maybe 1 or 2 sort of short, quick questions on this. But I'm interested on the data part of it, right? And I referenced this earlier on during the conversation as well. 100+ data sort of a team, looks interesting. But, and then going back to Sheetal's point, right? For a lot of sort of traditional retailers, and not just retailers, I think it's true with a lot of traditional businesses. When they, how do you suggest that they get started on this whole data journey, right? I mean, for someone who's thinking about things like, all right, we have done things this way, and why do we need so many data analysts? And I mean, any sort of way in which you say that, listen, this is how do you get started with that? How do you sort of convince them? What sort of homework should an organization or a marketer do to sort of get started on this journey?
I think for a marketer, it is very difficult to drive this cultural change. It has to be from top board, CEO level. Go back to Mehboob's point, like in such a cultural change, or Shahid's point that marketers has to be salespeople, or go to Sheetal's point that once there is an idea, its idea is good, but we have to ensure that it is continuously executed in the best way with the right operations. So this, that, and all those things. And then all the places the data is coming in place, whether you are influencing somebody to do a POC and A/B testing, whether trying to drive a cultural change internally, saying that overall Omni is also needed for any organization. Primark has never tried Omni, RedTag has never tried Omni, VMart has never tried Omni, and now learning the way. And then further on. So fundamentally, the first thing which any organization needs to think about it is that it is being analytical and it is not about data. So being analytical means that a person who is making a decision can make decisions multiple ways, can debate about it, do SWOT analysis, pros and cons and all of it. But at the end, when they are becoming more and more analytical in their own decision making, they will seek data. And once they will seek data, they will find the data. They will find the data from MIS team, the IT team, this team, that team. Like Shahir was talking about research online, purchase in stores, right? Now, why we need that data? Once that is clear, then people will find the data. Today, that data is available, right? Now, if the need for that data is to say that stores team is already doing some part of the work and some part of the work store is getting help from e-commerce. So going back to the primary thing, which is, in my previous company, Target, till 2009, Amazon was the platform on which Target was selling goods. And their primary mission for the e-commerce was drive store sales. So the website was that's a famous case study actually published in multiple places, was actually to drive the store sales. And it was working for them. Suddenly they realized in the first crisis that we need to change. And today we are, Macy's, Amazon and Walmart together are, pushing back the boundaries on Amazon. And multiple retailers in Europe has already pushed back them really hard, like ASOS or now, Zalando in Europe. So that's the part where most of the time these things have actually happened through data. So if the benchmarks are put in place and if the respective things are there and we are discussing more analytically rather than more anecdotally, things will drive change. But sorry to say that it is not one team's job, which is marketing's job, to drive a data-driven cultural change. It is everybody's job.
Got it. And that's interesting, right? Because typically people don't ask these analytical questions unless there is some sort of a disruption. And that's when they start thinking that, oh my God, okay, there seems to be something happening, or some sort of an anecdotal observation which starts making them ask these questions. Is that sort of true, which you have observed as well?
It happens all the time. I think it is just the human nature, right? So what is the human nature? Second guess yourself. So if you are not second guessing yourself, then you will not need the data. You are a decision maker. You are not second guessing yourself. So why you will second guess when any decision have multiple options or choices, and the choices they become very, very difficult to make when the cost is very high. Also, the choices are very different to each other, or completely different in the direction which we have been doing the business. So that's where the things become test and learn comes, where you want to test some waters and then see how much warm cold it is and go beyond that. Now, hypothesis is very, very important in data analysis, because what happens is you can easily drown in data. If you want to say, do run this number, run that number, cut this way, cut that way, and 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 5 weeks, 7, 15 weeks can go on and nothing comes out of the whole exercise. So hypothesis from the decision maker, and a very precise hypothesis, which is very likely to be true or false, reduces this reruns and reduces the decision making burden also. Like whether for Omni, whether we should have all orders in same shipment and delay things, or we should have multiple shipments and get the first thing the first day, second thing the second day. These are fundamental shifts in the operational ways of working. Very difficult to actually make it decision without the data. And the decision makers who are sitting there are making their decisions. And sometimes they look into data. Sometimes let's say, okay, fine, this is an IT thing, I can roll back. Let's try for 15 days.
Got it. Interesting. So I'm going to pick up one question. I think there's one question from the audience which talks about conversational AI, basically chatbots or WhatsApp conversations. over text or voice as a solution for customer engagement? Have any of you sort of used, WhatsApp chatbots or even web chatbots for that matter?
Yeah, we have burned our hands. We have burned our hands.
And how have you burned your? That was a very interesting question. I'm going to ask for more details now. So can you please elaborate so that others don't burn their hands?
See, there are two ways of thinking about chatbot in retail. One way of thinking about it is whether agent is there, which is where Sheetal was basically trying to get, which is the video chat and all those things which is there. And second is where the agent is not there. I consider myself to be somewhere knowledgeable of methodologies. I still don't think that the natural language generation has reached the stage where, it itself can replace human. Maybe 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, we will get there. And with some bit of virtual reality, we will do it better. But we'll have to wait some more years. But the current conversational AI, and we did this in November in all 3 brands in multiple stores as a pilot. We are going to do it again, and we are going to learn, maybe burn our hands again and again and again. And as a consumer, you will actually see it. But the fundamental point which is there is different from conversational AI. The fundamental point is, can store do fulfillment? Okay, that's the first fundamental point. Second point for that is whether the order which will come to store to fulfill will come from a face-to-face interactions or a digital interaction. And that can be any way. And third point which will come, which is related to which way the order is coming, whether it is coming say a chat conversation or a browse conversation or whichever. So these 3 are the 3 layers of this area of operating model. And I take my personal opinion, this is going to change a lot of things because of the third point is, if store is doing the fulfillment, can we meet 4 hours? And actually we met 4 hours delivery for around 30 to 40% cases in some of the select cities, but we could not sustain it. Right? We tried our own internal model. We tried with hyper delivery partners. We tried this and that, but the hyper delivery partners are also improving. And if we can sustain it, this is going to be the way, especially in the metros. And the best example today is in UAE, Dubai, where address has changed. So I don't know how much people know. Very difficult to find an address in Saudi Arabia, in a specific city which is not Riyadh, Jeddah, Dammam. Very, very difficult. You cannot find. People don't type things and then it will go all over the place. Shahir would know much more. Multiple solutions has come for that. Now the mobile device is becoming the address, and people can pick up things from a mall. And big partner in Dubai is doing that. You all must know the names also.
Awesome. Thanks, Abhijit.
I just want to pick up.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I just want to pick up on that. So what I think is conversational commerce will become a very big thing in the future. So maybe let's say 6 months or a year from now, given how Facebook is ramping up, you would have selling directly on WhatsApp available. You can pay, you can buy, you will have your catalogs linked directly within WhatsApp as well. So I think conversational commerce will be a big thing of the future, and not that far away future, probably a near future. So all the companies should start investing money behind it and building whatever they can, like obviously chatbots to the limited level that they can build. And yes, there needs to be a healthy mix though between chatbots and having also customer care representatives when you're not able to deal with a certain query just with the chatbot, because sometimes human interaction is necessary. But for companies that are working with scale, I think after 6 months, it is going to be something that will help you stand out to the other competitors. So it's a good thing to invest in for sure.
Got it.
In my opinion.
Thanks, Shahir. And sorry, folks. I mean, I need to stop this here. But hey, it was awesome having all of you. Thank you, Shahir. Thank you, Sheetal, Abhijit, Mahbub. This was really helpful.